I never thought Thanksgiving dinner would become a battlefield, but there I was, staring across the table at my daughter-in-law Jennifer's cold eyes as she delivered words that would shatter our family forever. "She doesn't belong at this table," Jennifer said, her voice cutting through the warm atmosphere of our Connecticut home like a blade through butter. The she Jennifer was referring to wasn't me. It was Maria, our longtime housekeeper who had become like family over the past 15 years. Maria, who had helped raise my son David when his father and I divorced, who had been there through every milestone, every celebration, every tear. My hands trembled as I set down my wine glass. The crystal made a sharp clink against the mahogany table that had hosted decades of family gatherings. Around us, the autumn decorations I'd spent hours arranging, golden leaves intertwined with orange marigolds, my grandmother's antique candelabras casting dancing shadows on the cream-colored walls, seemed to mock the tension filling the room. "Excuse me?" I managed to whisper, though my voice sounded foreign to my own ears. Jennifer's perfectly manicured fingers adjusted her pearl necklace, a wedding gift from me that now felt like a mistake. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe chignon that matched her equally severe expression. "I said she doesn't belong here. This is a family dinner, Margaret, not a charity event." Maria, who had been quietly helping serve the turkey, froze beside the mahogany sideboard that had belonged to my mother. Her weathered hands, which had kneaded countless batches of cookies for David's school events, clutched the silver serving spoon like a lifeline. At 58, Maria still moved with the quiet grace of someone who had learned to be invisible while being indispensable. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jennifer, in her designer dress and perfectly applied makeup, looked every inch the socialite wife. But Maria, in her simple black dress and sensible shoes, had more elegance in her little finger than Jennifer possessed in her entire privileged body. David looked between his wife and me, his face pale beneath his carefully groomed beard. The man I'd raised to stand up for what's right seemed paralyzed by the moment. His hazel eyes, so much like his father's, though thankfully his character was entirely his own, darted nervously between the two women who had shaped his adult life in vastly different ways. But then something shifted in his expression, a flash of the boy who once defended smaller kids from bullies, the teenager who had volunteered at the homeless shelter every Christmas, the young man who had majored in social work before law school changed his path. "Jennifer," David's voice was steady but firm, carrying the authority he used in courtrooms. "Maria is family." The words hung in the air like smoke from the candles flickering on our table. Jennifer's face flushed red, her composure cracking for the first time since I'd known her. Her blue eyes, usually so calculating, now blazed with indignation. "Family," she laughed bitterly, the sound as sharp as breaking glass. "David, she's the help. There's a difference." That's when I saw it, the real Jennifer, not the polished socialite who charmed our country club with her perfect tennis game and charity committee participation, but someone whose heart had been hardened by privilege and prejudice. The mask I'd suspected she wore was finally slipping, revealing something ugly underneath. The dining room, which had witnessed so many joyful gatherings, David's graduation celebrations, holiday feasts, birthday parties, suddenly felt cold, despite the crackling fire in the stone fireplace. The portraits of my ancestors seemed to look down in disapproval, as if they too could sense the hatred poisoning our family sanctuary. But what happened next would change everything, setting in motion a series of events that would test the very meaning of family and force us all to confront truths we'd been too comfortable to examine. Hey everyone, before we continue with this incredible story, I'd love to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your location in the comments. And if you're enjoying this emotional roller coaster, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Maria's eyes filled with tears, but she held her head high with a dignity that seemed to illuminate the entire room. In that moment, I saw the strength that had carried her through 2 jobs, night school and raising 3 children of her own while caring for ours. Her dark eyes, usually warm with laughter, now reflected a pain I recognized. The pain of being judged not for who you are, but for where you came from. "Mrs. Jennifer," Maria said softly, her accented English more dignified than Jennifer's polished words. "I understand. I go now." She began to untie her apron, the same cream-colored apron she'd worn to every family gathering, the one she'd embroidered with small sunflowers during David's senior year of high school. Her movements were slow, deliberate, each gesture carrying the weight of 15 years of memories. But David stood up so abruptly, his chair scraped against the hardwood floor, the sound echoing through the suddenly silent room like a gunshot. "No, Maria. You stay. Jennifer, we need to talk, now." The transformation in my son was immediate and startling. His shoulders straightened, his jaw set with determination I hadn't seen since he'd defended his thesis in law school. This wasn't the passive husband who'd let Jennifer redecorate our family photos out of the living room, or who'd stopped mentioning Maria's grandchildren's achievements at dinner parties because Jennifer found the stories tedious. The tension in the room was suffocating. My other guests, my sister Patricia and her husband Tom, sat frozen, their forks suspended halfway to their mouths. Patricia's kind face was pale with shock, while Tom, a retired police officer who'd seen his share of family disputes, looked like he was calculating the best way to diffuse the situation. Even the grandfather clock in the hallway, a wedding gift from my parents 40 years ago, seemed to tick louder, marking each uncomfortable second with mechanical precision. Jennifer's mask slipped further, revealing something predatory underneath. "David, you're embarrassing yourself. And me. What will people think?" Her voice carried the entitled whine of someone who'd never been told no, never been challenged, never had to examine her own prejudices. She glanced toward the windows as if our neighbors might be watching, as if their opinions mattered more than the woman who'd given our family 15 years of unwavering devotion. "What will people think?" David's voice rose, carrying across the room with the force of years of suppressed frustration. "What will people think when they learn my wife has no compassion, no understanding of what family really means?" I watched. My son transformed before my eyes, shedding the passive demeanor he'd adopted since marrying Jennifer. The man who'd let his wife make most of the decisions in their marriage, from the color of their kitchen cabinets to which charity events they'd attend, was finally finding his voice. But Jennifer wasn't backing down. Her blue eyes flashed with the fury of someone whose worldview was being challenged. "I won't be lectured by you or your mother about propriety," she hissed. "Maria is paid to be here. She's not our equal." The words hung in the air like poison. Patricia gasped audibly, her hand flying to her chest. Tom's face darkened with anger, while I felt something cold settle in my stomach. The realization that my son had married someone whose values were completely opposite to everything we'd taught him. That's when Maria did something that surprised us all. She stepped forward, her small frame somehow commanding the entire room's attention. At barely 5 feet tall, she suddenly seemed to tower over everyone present. "Mrs. Jennifer, you right about one thing. I am paid to work in this house, but you wrong about everything else." Her voice was steady, calm, carrying the authority of someone who'd survived poverty, war, and discrimination with her dignity intact. "I hold David when he cry about his father leaving. I teach him to tie his shoes, to ride bicycle, to be good man. I not just work here, I help build this family." Her words hit Jennifer like physical blows, each one stripping away another layer of Jennifer's superiority complex. But instead of softening, Jennifer's expression hardened into something truly ugly. "How dare you speak to me like that? You're nothing but a—" "Stop." David's voice cut through the air like thunder, carrying such authority that even Jennifer's mouth snapped shut. "Not another word, Jennifer. Not one more word." The silence that followed was deafening, filled with 15 years of unspoken truths and the sound of a marriage cracking apart. But in that silence, I could hear something breaking and something else being born. What Jennifer said next would seal her fate forever and reveal the true depth of her character. Jennifer's face contorted with rage, her carefully applied makeup beginning to smudge as her composure completely unraveled. The woman who prided herself on always looking perfect now resembled something feral and desperate. A Mexican cleaning lady lecturing me about family? This is insane. The racist slur that followed made everyone at the table gasp in horror. Patricia covered her mouth in shock, her wedding ring catching the candlelight as her hand trembled. Tom pushed back from the table as if trying to distance himself from the ugliness, his policeman's instincts recognizing the kind of hatred that could turn dangerous. The dining room, which had always been a sanctuary of warmth and acceptance, suddenly felt contaminated by Jennifer's venom. The family portraits on the walls, generations of relatives who had welcomed immigrants and fought for civil rights, seemed to stare down in disappointment. But Maria, beautiful, dignified Maria, simply smiled sadly, the expression of someone who had faced this kind of ignorance before and learned to meet it with grace rather than anger. "I am from El Salvador, Mrs. Jennifer," she said quietly, her voice carrying the patience of a teacher correcting a stubborn child. "My family fled the war when I was 16. Civil war that killed my father, my oldest brother. We come here with nothing but hope and strong hands willing to work." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the room. The fire in the fireplace crackled softly, the only sound in the suddenly reverent silence. "I work 3 jobs to bring my children here legally. Clean offices at night, work in restaurant kitchen during day, study English at community college on weekends. Take me 8 years to save money for proper immigration lawyer. All my children now American citizens, born here or naturalized same as me." Maria's voice grew stronger as she continued, each word a testament to resilience and determination. "My oldest daughter, she is doctor. My son, he is teacher. My youngest, she study law at Yale University." The room fell silent again, the weight of Maria's achievements hanging in the air like a rebuke to Jennifer's ignorance. The contrast was stark. Jennifer, who had been handed everything on a silver platter, versus Maria, who had built an American dream from nothing but determination and love. Jennifer's confident smirk began to falter as the implications of Maria's words sank in. Her worldview, built on assumptions about superiority and entitlement, was crumbling before her eyes. David walked slowly to Maria's side, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Maria's daughter Carmen performs heart surgery on children at Boston Children's Hospital. She saved 17 young lives last year alone. Her son Miguel teaches advanced mathematics to inner-city kids in Hartford, and half of his students have gone on to college on full scholarships." His voice grew stronger, more confident with each word. "Her youngest daughter, Isabella, is not only on full scholarship at Yale Law, she's the editor of the Yale Law Journal and has already been offered positions at 3 of the most prestigious civil rights firms in the country." Jennifer's face had gone ashen, but David wasn't finished. "And what do you do, Jennifer?" he continued, his voice carrying the quiet authority of a courtroom. "Besides spend my money on designer handbags and judge people who've accomplished more in one day than you have in your entire privileged life." The transformation in my son was remarkable and heartbreaking at the same time. The man who'd been afraid to contradict his wife was now standing tall, defending what was right with the moral courage I'd tried to instill in him from childhood. Jennifer looked around the table desperately, seeking support that wasn't coming. Her eyes met mine, and I saw something like panic there, the realization that her carefully constructed world was falling apart. "David, you can't be serious," she said, her voice taking on a pleading quality. "Choose her over me? Over your own wife?" "I'm not choosing anyone over anyone," David replied calmly, his lawyer's training evident in his measured response. "I'm simply recognizing what family actually means." Maria earned her place at this table through 15 years of love, sacrifice, and genuine care. "You've been here 2 years, and just revealed your true character. Patricia finally found her voice, though it shook with emotion. Jennifer, I think you owe Maria an apology. A profound apology. But Jennifer wasn't finished revealing the depths of her prejudice. Her next move would shock everyone and show just how deep her hatred ran, how far she was willing to go to maintain her sense of superiority. She stood up slowly, throwing her linen napkin down like a gauntlet. "Fine," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "But don't expect me to pretend this is normal, and don't expect me to raise my children around people like her." The word children hit the room like a bomb. Jennifer was pregnant, something she and David had kept secret, planning to announce it as a joyful surprise during dessert. But her revelation was about to backfire spectacularly, becoming not a weapon, but the final nail in the coffin of her marriage. If you're as shocked as I am by Jennifer's behavior, smash that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories. You won't believe what happens next. The pregnancy announcement that should have been the evening's most joyful moment became a weapon of emotional manipulation. Jennifer placed her hand on her still flat stomach with theatrical precision, her fingers splayed possessively across the designer fabric of her dress. "That's right, David," she said, her voice taking on a sickeningly sweet tone. "I'm carrying your child, our child, and I won't have my baby influenced by the kind of element your mother welcomes into this home." The silence that followed was deafening. David's face went through a series of emotions: shock at the news he should have heard in private, joy at the prospect of fatherhood, confusion at his wife's timing, and finally, a steely determination I'd never seen before. The dining room, which moments before had been filled with tension, now felt charged with something different, a sense of lines being drawn, of irreversible choices being made. The candles on the table flickered as if responding to the emotional storm swirling around them. "Congratulations, Jennifer," Maria said quietly, her voice filled with genuine warmth despite everything that had just transpired. Her ability to respond with kindness in the face of such cruelty was breathtaking. "Children are blessing from God. I pray for healthy baby and happy family." Jennifer's response was to laugh coldly, the sound echoing off the dining room walls like shards of broken glass. "Don't pretend to care about my child. Don't pretend you'll have anything to do with raising them." The cruelty of using an unborn child as a weapon shocked everyone into silence. Tom's face had gone red with suppressed anger, while Patricia looked like she might be sick. This was beyond anything any of us had imagined Jennifer capable of. That's when I stood up, my chair, scraping against the floor with finality. At 68 years old, I'd never felt more powerful or more certain of what needed to be said. "Jennifer," I began, my voice steady as steel forged in the fires of decades of experience. "In this house, we judge people by their character, not their nationality, their job, or the color of their skin. Maria has more character in her little finger than you've shown in 2 years of marriage to my son. How dare you?" "I'm not finished," I interrupted, my voice rising with the authority of a woman who had raised a son alone, who had built a successful interior design business from nothing, who had learned that respect is earned, not inherited. Maria was here when David had appendicitis at 14. She slept in that uncomfortable hospital chair for 3 nights, straight, holding his hand when the pain medication wore off. I could see David's eyes filling with tears as I continued, memories flooding back of all the moments Jennifer had never bothered to learn about. She taught him Spanish so he could communicate with the landscaping crew he worked with that summer, when he was 16, not because she had to, but because she believed in the dignity of honest work and wanted him to connect with the men who were teaching him that lesson. My voice grew stronger, fed by years of gratitude for this woman who had helped shape my son into the man he was meant to be. She helped him write his college application essays, spending hours at this very table helping him find the words to express his dreams. She cried at his high school graduation, his college graduation, and yes, even at his wedding day, because she loved him enough to welcome the woman he chose. Even when that woman never bothered to learn her name correctly or acknowledge her contributions to this family. Jennifer's composure was cracking like ice in spring, her perfect facade crumbling under the weight of truth. That doesn't make her family, she protested, but her voice lacked conviction now. Actually, David said quietly, walking to the old secretary desk in the corner, it does. The mahogany desk had belonged to my grandmother, and David had used it for homework throughout his childhood. Now he opened one of its small drawers and pulled out a legal document bound in blue covers. Mom, Maria, there's something I never told either of you. Something I've been planning for months. My heart stopped. What secret had my son been keeping? What surprise could possibly top the emotional revelations of this evening? David walked slowly back to the table, the document in his hands seeming to carry enormous weight. 6 months ago, I had my lawyer draw up papers. Maria, I've been waiting for the right moment to tell you this, and I guess that moment is now. He handed the document to Maria, whose weathered hands shook as she opened it. Her eyes widened as she read the legal language, and tears began to flow down her cheeks. You've been more than family to us, David continued, his voice thick with emotion. You've been everything a mother should be when my biological mother was working 60-hour weeks to keep us afloat. Everything a grandmother should be to the children I hope to have someday. So I want to make it official. The room was so quiet, you could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, marking moments that would be remembered forever. I'm leaving you a third of my inheritance. This house, the one you've cared for so lovingly, will be partially yours when Mom is ready to pass it on. The trust fund my grandmother left me, you'll be a beneficiary. Because blood doesn't make family, Maria. Love does. Sacrifice does. Being there when it matters most does. Maria's tears came freely now, 15 years of devotion being acknowledged, in the most concrete way possible. Jennifer's face had gone white as paper. You can't be serious, she whispered. You're giving our inheritance to the maid? David turned to his wife, and I saw the final death of their marriage in his eyes. Not anger, but a kind of sad finality, like watching a beautiful building being demolished. No, Jennifer. I'm giving part of our family's legacy to someone who understands what legacy actually means. What Jennifer did next revealed the true depth of her desperation and showed everyone in that room exactly who she really was beneath the designer clothes and perfect makeup. Jennifer's carefully constructed world was collapsing, and her response was to lash out like a cornered animal. She lunged for the legal document in Maria's hands, her manicured nails scraping against the paper as she tried to tear it away. This is illegal. You can't just give away family money to strangers. I'll fight this in court. I'll have you declared mentally incompetent. The desperation in her voice was palpable, her perfect facade completely shattered. This was a woman who had never been denied anything she wanted, never been forced to confront the possibility that her actions might have consequences. David caught Jennifer's wrist gently but firmly, his larger hand completely encompassing hers. Actually, I can. And Maria isn't a stranger. She's been more present in my life than my own father ever was. The mention of David's absent father struck deep, hitting the wound that had never quite healed. Jennifer had always known this was David's vulnerable spot, the abandonment he'd felt when his father walked out on us when David was only 8 years old, leaving behind nothing but empty promises and unpaid bills. Your father left because your mother couldn't keep a man happy, Jennifer spat, her words dripping with calculated cruelty. Just like she'll drive you away from me, this whole family is toxic. The attack on me was clearly meant to wound both, David and myself, to create division where Jennifer saw unity. But instead of the devastation she expected, something remarkable happened. David laughed. Actually laughed. A sound of genuine amusement rather than bitterness. You know what, Jennifer? You're absolutely right about one thing. My father did leave. But he left because he was a coward who couldn't handle the responsibility of being a real man, a real husband, a real father. David's voice grew stronger, more confident as he continued. But look around this table. Look at the family. My mother built after he abandoned us. Maria helped raise me into a man who can handle responsibility, who understands loyalty, who knows the difference between love and possession. He gestured toward Patricia and Tom, who had been watching the drama unfold with expressions of shocked concern. Tom stepped in as a father figure when I needed one, teaching me to throw a baseball and change a tire and treat women with respect. Patricia has been like a second mother, always there with advice and unconditional love. This is what real family looks like, people who choose to love each other, who show up when it matters, who stick around through the hard times. Maria stepped forward, still clutching the legal document, but her posture somehow protective of Jennifer, despite everything that had happened. Mrs. Jennifer, I know you scared. New baby coming, big changes in life. Is normal to feel frightened. But fear, it make us say things we don't mean, do things that hurt people we should love. The offer of understanding was so genuine, so compassionate, after everything Jennifer had said, that even Patricia started crying. Here was a woman who had just been subjected to racist attacks and personal humiliation, and she was offering comfort to her tormentor. I help you too if you want, Maria continued, her voice soft but steady. I help with everything, cooking special foods for pregnancy, preparing nursery, caring for Nino when he come. I know about babies, about children. I raised 3 of my own and helped raise David. I want to help you too. The generosity of the offer hung in the air like a benediction, a final chance for Jennifer to choose love over hatred, family over prejudice. For a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in Jennifer's eyes, a crack in the armor of her bigotry, a glimpse of the woman David must have fallen in love with. But that moment passed quickly, replaced by something harder and uglier. Help. Me? You think I'd let you touch my child? You think I'd trust some illegal immigrant with my baby? The racist venom in her words shocked everyone into silence again. But this time, Maria's response was what made Jennifer's face go pale with something. That might have been shame. Mrs. Jennifer, I am not illegal. I am American citizen for 15 years. I vote in every election since I become citizen. I pay taxes, more taxes last year than many people make in salary. I volunteer at Children's Hospital every weekend, reading stories to sick niños in both English and Spanish. Maria pulled out her wallet, the same worn leather wallet she'd carried for years, and carefully extracted her naturalization certificate. She always carried it, she told me once, because people like Jennifer made her prove she belonged here every day of her life. I'm more American than you think, she said, unfolding the official document with its government seals and signatures. I earn my place here through hard work, through service, through love of this country that gave me and my children opportunity for better life. Every day I prove I belong here. Every day I choose to be grateful instead of bitter. She looked directly at Jennifer as she continued. I am proud Salvadoran American woman who teach her children to work hard, to respect everyone regardless of where they come from, to give back to community that welcomed us. My children, they are doctors and teachers and lawyers because I show them that in America, if you work hard and treat people with kindness, you can achieve anything. David looked at his wife with what I could only describe as disgust, mixed with profound disappointment. Jennifer, you need to leave, now. Pack a bag and go to your mother's, or a hotel, or wherever you want. But you're not welcome in this house until you can apologize to Maria and mean it. You're choosing her over your own wife and unborn child? Jennifer's voice was shrill now, desperate. I'm choosing dignity over hatred. I'm choosing family over bigotry. I'm choosing the values I was raised with over the poison you've been spreading in our home. Jennifer's face contorted with rage and desperation. She was losing everything. Her husband, her comfortable life, her position in our family and social circle. And like many people who find themselves cornered by the consequences of their own actions, she decided to go down, fighting. Jennifer's final desperate move would reveal just how far she was willing to go to maintain her sense of superiority, and it would seal her fate forever. This story is getting more intense by the minute. Hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up if you're on the edge of your seat. The conclusion will blow your mind. Jennifer's final card was the cruelest yet, and it revealed the true depths of her desperation and malice. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and dialed 911, her voice taking on a false, theatrical panic. "Yes, I need immigration services immediately," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I want to report an illegal immigrant who has been stealing from my family. She's been embezzling money, and I have proof." The lie was so outrageous, so deliberately vindictive, that everyone at the table gasped in horror. Patricia actually stood up, her chair falling backward in her shock. Tom's face darkened with the expression of a man who had spent 30 years in law enforcement and recognized false reporting when he heard it. But Maria remained calm, displaying the grace under pressure that had carried her through civil war, immigration, and decades of subtle discrimination. She reached into her purse, the same simple black purse she'd carried to work for years, and pulled out a thick manila folder. "Mrs. Jennifer, you want to see my papers? You want proof of who I am and what I do?" Maria's voice was steady, but I could hear the pain underneath. "Here, my naturalization certificate, my social security card, my American passport, my tax returns for 15 years, my volunteer certificates from Children's Hospital, my perfect credit report." She spread the documents across the mahogany table, like playing cards, each one a testament to a life lived with integrity and purpose. My children's birth certificates, all born here in America. Their school records, their citizenship papers for the two who were naturalized with me. Bank statements showing every penny I earn and save. The documentation was overwhelming, a paper trail of someone who had not just followed every law but exceeded every expectation of citizenship. "I keep everything," Maria continued, her voice growing stronger, "because people like you make me prove I belong here every day of my life. 15 years I carry these papers. 15 years I am ready to show I am good American, good person, good employee." David gently took the phone from Jennifer's hand and hung up before she could say anything more. "That's enough, Jennifer. You've shown everyone exactly who you are, and there's no coming back from this." But Jennifer wasn't finished with her desperate performance. Her final words would cement her legacy in our family's memory forever. "Fine," she screamed, her voice echoing through our home like the cry of something wounded and dangerous. "But I'm leaving, and I'm taking your child with me. You'll never see your baby because you chose some Mexican maid over your own family." "Salvadoran," David corrected quietly, his voice carrying the patient tone of someone who had finally seen clearly. "And she's not some maid. She's the woman who taught me what unconditional love looks like, what sacrifice means, what real family is." Jennifer's face was streaked with mascara now, her perfect appearance destroyed by her own hatred. "You'll regret this, David. All of you will regret choosing her over me." Patricia stood up and walked to Maria, embracing her tightly. "Maria, you've always been family to us. I'm ashamed that you had to hear such horrible things in our home, and I'm sorry we didn't stop it sooner." Tom nodded his agreement, his policeman's training evident in his protective posture. "Maria, you've been nothing but a blessing to this family. What happened here tonight is not a reflection of your worth. It's a revelation of character, and yours shines brighter than ever." As Jennifer gathered her purse and coat, her movements sharp and angry, her final words revealed her true character one last time. "You'll all regret this. And when my child grows up asking why they don't have a grandmother, I'll tell them it's because Margaret chose the help over her own blood." But David's response was perfect, delivered with the quiet authority of a man who had finally found his moral center. "The only thing I regret is not standing up to your prejudice sooner. and my child will know their grandmother. They'll know, the woman who taught their father how to love unconditionally. After Jennifer left, slamming the door behind her with enough force to rattle the windows, the real Thanksgiving began. Maria initially tried to retreat to the kitchen, overwhelmed by everything that had happened. But David gently took her arm and guided her to the head of the table, to the chair that had always been hers by right, even when she'd been too humble to claim it. We spent the next 3 hours sharing stories I'd never heard before. Maria told us about her journey to America, traveling with her 3 young children through Guatemala and Mexico, carrying everything they owned in 2 suitcases and a backpack. She described her first job in America, cleaning office buildings at night while her children slept in the car in the parking garage. How she saved every penny to bring them to a better neighborhood. How she studied English by watching children's television programs because they spoke slowly and clearly. She shared her children's achievements with the pride of a mother who had sacrificed everything to give them opportunities she'd never had. Carmen's first successful heart surgery on a 6-year-old boy whose parents spoke no English. How Maria had served as translator during the recovery process. Miguel's innovative teaching methods that had gotten inner-city kids interested in advanced mathematics by connecting equations to music and art. Isabella's scholarship to Yale, her work with immigrant families, her determination to become a civil rights lawyer. 6 months later, David filed for divorce. Jennifer tried to use the pregnancy to manipulate the proceedings, claiming David was an unfit father because he prioritized the help over his own family. But the judge, a wise Latina woman who had heard every variation of prejudice in her courtroom, saw through Jennifer's tactics immediately. When little Sophia was born 8 months later, Maria was there in the delivery room, not as an employee, but as the grandmother she had always been in her heart. David had fought for and won primary custody, with Jennifer receiving supervised visitation rights that she rarely exercised. Jennifer never apologized for her behavior. In fact, she doubled down, telling anyone who would listen that David had chosen the maid over his wife and child. But what she didn't realize was that her story, meant to gain sympathy, actually revealed her own character so clearly that most people distanced themselves from her. Today, 3-year-old Sophia calls Maria abuela and speaks both English and Spanish fluently. She spends her mornings helping Abuela Maria tend the vegetable garden they planted together in our backyard, learning the names of plants in both languages and the patience required to nurture growing things. Jennifer has limited visitation rights, but sees Sophia perhaps once a month, usually dropping her off early and finding excuses to avoid any real interaction. Sophia has stopped asking why Mama Jennifer doesn't want to play with her, accepting with the resilience of childhood that some people simply don't know how to love. Our Thanksgiving table has never been fuller or more joyful. Maria's children and grandchildren have joined our family celebrations, bringing traditional Salvadoran dishes that now sit alongside our turkey and stuffing. Carmen's husband and children, Miguel's wife and twin boys, Isabella and her girlfriend, whom Maria adores, all gather around our table each year, sharing stories in 2 languages and creating new traditions that honor both cultures. And Maria? She still insists on helping prepare the meal, but now she sits at the head of the table where she always belonged, leading us in a prayer of gratitude that encompasses both English and Spanish, acknowledging the blessings of family that transcends blood, the gift of love that transcends origin, and the miracle of belonging that comes not from where you're born, but from where you're welcomed, where you're valued, and where your heart finds its home. Because we learned that sometimes the people who don't share your blood can be the most family of all, and sometimes it takes a crisis to reveal who your real family is and who was never family at all.